Okay, so nice deep belly breath in and sigh on the exhale. And as you breathe in, filling the belly with as much air as you can. And release. One more, breathing in. And release.
Beautiful. I love that. And that's how we start today's episode of Learning How to Live. Welcome to another episode. Super excited to be hanging out with Cindy, Sacred Cindy. It's been a minute, but I'm happy to be back with you.
Thank
How you doing?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone. It has been a ride. I think for a lot of people, the Easter season brings a lot of craziness.
100%.
And we sort of have to find our feet again in the month of May. And what I've noticed collectively is all the businesses are very busy now after
Yeah.
Easter. I think
Yeah.
either catching up or new business coming in, which is great. But it can obviously, from a health perspective, cause some tensions.
100%.
So our humans need to make sure we check in every day, either with a breath or a minute, just silence, just pulling yourself towards yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been quite an interesting month.
100%. So today we're chatting food and wellness. Something I noticed, and it's a conversation my wife and I have had a couple of times. There have been moments where we would have fast food, say for instance McDonald's, right? And we eat that and it's all nice. But when we wake up the next day, like we feel that, hey, something we ate was just not right, or our body rejected whatever it is that we ate. And I guess I'm trying to set the scene regarding what it is that we're going to be talking about today. And I think to start the conversation, I want to find out from you, how exactly does the food we eat influence our emotional, our mental well-being on a biological level? Yeah.
Thank you. It's something that I'm very excited about because in my own journey, I've had to go from first ignoring the science until
Yeah.
it got to a space where the physical body started to show symptoms of I'm not well. And then finding the wisdom of what my body was actually trying to tell me and really listening to the slight little symptoms or signals that the body gives. So,
Yeah.
for example, if someone has gone on a 2 or 3 day cleanse where they only do fruits and vegetables, the general thing is people normally do it to lose weight or
Right.
they have some sort of goal in mind. And the illusion is they think when they finish with that 3 day healthy eating, they can just jump back into eating whatever, right? The sad reality is your body has now changed its vibrational frequency. So if we think that everything in life is vibration or frequency and we can measure it, when we look at something like a vegetable or a fruit and we measure the quality of it, because there's no human interference, it's pure life force energy. So when that beautiful, clean food comes into your system, it actually raises your vibrational frequency. So you feel more joyful, more light. Your digestive system actually feels like there's room for movement. You feel like your cognitive function is clear and sort of you have this direction of, I know what I need to do today.
Yeah.
Because your body's functioning on clean fuel. The minute you then introduce the toxins or the processed foods
Right.
straight after, we've got, as I mentioned in our previous session, we've got these beautiful energy pathways, almost like a highway that runs through your body. So the pathway that runs from the liver and the gallbladder runs into the frontal cortex of the brain, which is our short-term memory, right? So our here and now function. So if I then dump a lot of oily foods or sugary foods or over-processed chemicals and things into my liver, guess what? That energy gets sent straight up to the frontal cortex of the brain. So it's literally like taking your garbage and dumping it into your brain function. So all of a sudden you have brain fog. And for me, I've actually tested it. So every now and then I'm like, "Oof, I really am craving a chocolate," right? The minute I have it, it's almost like there's a sensory experience that happens from my tongue to when it gets to my tummy. I feel a buzz inside of my brain. It literally feels like I'm on a high. And obviously, as we know, sugar is the most addictive drug
100%.
on the planet.
Yep.
And so that was a clear sign for me that, guys, this is real. And of course, there's lots of science to back it
Yeah.
up. But I think our conversation today, I really want to invite our audience to start listening to their bodies.
Yeah.
And like you said, the next morning, and it's almost like you feel like you have a hangover, right?
Yeah.
Like your body feels cloggy and slow, and your mind is all fogged up. And
And oftentimes I feel even more hungry.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I
So
normally
we
don't-
can dive into that, obviously, in
Yeah.
this portion, but you spot on.
100%. It's interesting that you speak about brain fog because I wanted to ask you about the fact that many people struggle with anxiety, low energy, and brain fog. Could this actually be connected to diet more than we actually think?
Yes. Yeah, no, I think one of the biggest things that we've uncovered in the last maybe 50 years of actively studying the human wellness process
Yeah.
is we know the importance of gut health. So if you've got a healthy gut, which means you get a fair balance of healthy fruits and vegetables, and if you are going to have proteins, make sure it's free range or organic.
Okay.
Your eggs, your chicken, whatever meat you are taking in. And then also finding the balance between what types of grains, because obviously we still need the full spectrum of everything. We do need the breads and the grains and those types of things, unless you have a specific issue with your gut, like an IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, where you can't consume certain grains. But if you are a sort of average everyday citizen, you should be able to have a diet that includes everything. And the importance of making sure the quality of the foods that you take in, it actually helps the body to sustain energy for a much longer period. So, for example, if you have a bowl of oats first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
that's going to sustain you. That's a healthy protein, and obviously the wheat
Yeah.
clears out the gut, but that's a healthy protein that's going to sustain the body. So what happens in the gut when we're constantly feeding it refined sugars, so processed foods, lots of sugars, lots of colorants, lots of fizzy drinks, the unhealthy bacteria that live in the gut start to run the show. And here's the scary part. These little organisms, even though they're so tiny,
Yeah.
they can actually send signals into the brain to tell you what to do. So if you go on a parasite cleanse, the first 24 hours, the voice you're going to hear in your brain is going to tell you, I'm dying. And you're going to think, oh my word, this is obviously not a good thing for me. I shouldn't be
100%.
doing this parasite cleanse.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this is the parasite sending a message from the gut to the brain, I'm dying. And yes, of course, that's why you are doing the parasite cleanse. You want that enzyme to die or to leave the system.
Yeah.
And this is where we find the balance. We understand that high sugar content feeds the unhealthy bacteria and parasites in the gut, which then, as we know, starts to send the wrong information to the brain. So people who struggle with chronic depression or anxiety, the first thing that happens is we have an adrenal overload. So there's so much sugar, and high energy drinks and things can pump that adrenaline rush. It almost feels like the body's being chased all the time. So first thing is we go into adrenal fatigue. So that increases the anxiety because the adrenals are now thinking I'm being chased by a lion. So of course, your gut is going to think, oh my goodness, I need to feel anxious all the time because I'm running, something's chasing me. Whereas if we are eating a healthy diet, the body slowly increases its energy. It slowly releases all the nutrients, all the vitamins, all the beautiful minerals that we need, and the body feels safe. The nervous system feels safe.
Yeah.
So there's a direct link with depression, anxiety, to unhealthy diets, where all of those toxins, as I mentioned, go and sits in the brain and in the gut, and then the unhealthy parasites start to run the show.
Yeah.
So very scary.
Quite interesting. I mean, with what you just said, what then should be our relationship with food?
So step one is I always say to my clients that all of life is sacred. So if we think that everything has a consciousness and everything comes from the same source, everything was created from the same energy field, would you rather not want to put something conscious to connect to your own consciousness versus something that is dead? So what I mean by that is when something comes out of the earth, like something that's freshly grown, it holds a very high consciousness, a high vibrational frequency that stimulates more life force energy in your body versus something that is completely processed, a packet of biscuits, for example. Even though they added maybe some eggs into it, the structure or the proteins of the eggs are so changed now because there's so many other components that's gone into making those biscuits. By the time you consume it, it's dead energy. There's zero energy. So if your diet consists mainly of putting dead energy into your body, the outcome is going to be you are literally feeling dead and tired all the time.
Yeah.
So first step is when you connect to your food, ask yourself, is this coming out of the earth or is it coming out of a shop? And then decide how much of processed foods can I put into my life. And I know sometimes someone invites you or you go out for dinner or life happens, but let that be the once a week or once a month kind of experience where you treat yourself to an ice cream or something.
Which is what I wanted to ask you. What are your thoughts on the 80-20 rule when it comes to eating? So 80% of the time you're eating clean, and then that 20%, it's room for eating whatever it is that you want to eat.
Yes, and maybe have a cheat day. I know a lot of people who are into fitness have Sundays is their cheat day. But then don't overindulge, of course. Don't be like, okay, now the whole week I had fruits and veg and healthy protein.
Gluttony.
And then be gluttonous and go into buying a whole box of Krispy Kreme donuts. Don't do that. That's not the healthy balance. The idea is that you say, okay, so if I do want to go out and have a slice of cake today, or I want to buy, I don't know, some sort of takeaway, great. Then enjoy it and just say to yourself, this is my day off. I'm not going to cook today. I'm just going to enjoy and just be, and maybe still go for a walk afterwards. But it is also good to have balance because we want to feel like we are still celebrating life as humans. You don't always want to feel like you are on this strict, straight and narrow path, So balance is key, but also, there's a very fine line in overindulging and having a day off.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. I want to talk about traditional Chinese medicine.
Yes.
Also want to talk about the season that we are in right now, which is the autumn season, right? So autumn is associated with the lungs and the large intestine in traditional Chinese medicine. I want to find out from you what the significance of this is and how does it affect what we should be eating during this autumn season.
Yes, and I think in our last conversation, I did mention that what happens when we go into transition of season, it's so important to make sure that the soil of the body is healthy before we, all these things that we've prepared in our gut before we go into winter. Because what happens in winter is the body and nature and everything shuts down. We go into a slumber state. So if you've been filling your gut for the month of autumn with all sorts of takeaways and nonsense, it's actually going to overstimulate the production of mucus in the body.
Okay.
And so the organs of the lung and the large intestine is predominantly focused on the release of mucus. So if you're going to be putting in products that stimulate mucus, people start with bronchial infections or sinus infections. And a lot of people say, no, this is normal, it's change of season. And yes, if you have a specific allergy, you might find when there's more pollen or more dust in the air, you can suffer from sinus or those types of infections, but it can still be counteracted with a healthy diet.
Interesting.
So for the majority of people, if you take care of your body, you shouldn't be sick during winter. There's no excuse. There's no reason. So unless you are physically burnt out, so you've been working, crazy hours and you haven't slept well and you haven't been eating healthy meals, then of course your body is weak and you will get sick. But if you are running a normal 8 to 5 and you are doing the things, you are eating right, you're exercising, there's no reason for you to be unhealthy during winter. So when we look at the organs of the lungs and the large intestine, and we know that they are the organs that bring moisture into the body. So if you think of the large intestine, when it releases whatever the body no longer needs, there's moisture required in order for that to leave the body. So if we overstimulate the body with junk food, we can get congestion. And then a lot of people sit with constipation, or they have bronchial infections, like I said. So we want to move away from that. And that is when we bring in beautiful foods to support those two organs in autumn.
Interesting. I think it was last week or the week before that. So it's a bit crazy in my household right now, school, work, and all of that. So we were feeling quite tired that day. I remember my wife was studying upstairs. I was downstairs also doing some schoolwork, but we were quite tired. I went into the fridge, I think, and I took out a root of ginger, cut it, and I ate it. Just started chewing on it. And I kid you not, a couple of minutes later, I had energy, right? Went upstairs, gave the same ginger to my wife. I said, babe, eat this. And she didn't want to. I said, eat.
Yeah.
And she ate it. And I promise you, she had the energy and she started studying, right? So going back to us transitioning right now, can you break down some of the key seasonal foods, right? And explain how they specifically support mental clarity or emotional resilience? Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you had that ginger experience, because a lot of people don't understand the concept that there's different layers of energy when it comes to plants. So when you look at the roots, that is obviously the most connected to the minerals and the nutrients in the earth. So anything that's a root or growing inside the earth, like your potatoes or those types of things, is stored with so much nutrients. And then obviously the leaves of the trees, or the leaves of the plants can be used for teas, herbal remedies, and then we have the fruits, which is still great. But the fact that you experience that firsthand is so profound. So now that memory is stored in your body. So I always bring in, I say to people, that is amazing, because not only does it warm the lungs and obviously clears the digestive, the ginger specifically, but there is a link to this, because you are now clearing these pathways, that it sends energy to the brain.
100%.
So it's a beautiful root to bring in for winter. And you can combine it with turmeric as well. Obviously, both of these are antibacterial, antimicrobial, and they help for fungal infections, all of those types of things. So that's brilliant. And then, of course, people are generally drawn to garlic and onions when we are cooking in the winter, because we're making beautiful stews or soups. And the difference is, I always say to people, don't use garlic and onions as a lifestyle ingredient to cook with all year round.
Okay.
Because it's actually super powerful medicine. If you overdo it, if you have it every single day in every single meal, it can actually aggravate the nervous system. It overstimulates the nervous system. So we only use it in autumn and winter, because it helps us to strengthen our immune system. It helps to clear whatever phlegm or congestion is in the body. But it's specifically designed for the colder months. So we're not supposed to have garlic and onions
all the
in
time.
Spring and summer. Yeah. And then, of course, things like your radishes, those are great to clear phlegm. Your mustard greens open up the lungs. Any peppers, of course, white pepper, red pepper, black pepper, it helps with the circulation. So if we think about the lungs and the gut specifically, there's a lot of fluids, there's a lot of energy that goes through those organs. So you want to increase and support, the circulation in those organs.
I like that. Yeah, I always go back to ginger now. Whenever I feel some type of way, I'm like, let me just chew on this root of ginger. Yeah, I want to talk about practical food swaps or habits. We can start implementing today to support both our gut and our mental health. What are some of the food swaps that we can actually look at?
Yes, so we want to look at foods that are predominantly white in color. And that's specifically, if you think about the air that fills the lungs, it can be like this smoky kind of feeling if you just want to visualize it. So that's the link we make. So anything that will support the element of metal or the lungs, And the foods that we then bring in is things like pears. We want to bring in a healthy kind of moisture into the lungs. So it
Yeah.
actually helps to soothe dry coughs.
Okay.
So a beautiful way to prepare pears, if you don't want to eat it raw, remember we've also got different body types. So
Yeah.
a beautiful way is you just steam it on the stove. So you do a few slices of pear, maybe add some cinnamon,
Okay.
maybe some turmeric, whatever you want to add into that mix. And obviously the sweetness of the pears as you steam them is quite a beautiful dessert after your meal to
Yeah.
enjoy. So that's quite a nice thing to bring in. Some white mushrooms. I did put in lotus root, but
Yes,
lotus
I wanted
root,
to
I
ask
think,
about that.
yeah, it's a tricky one to find. So a lot of times you'll find it in like your Chinese grocers where they have like bok choy or those types of things. But if you can't find it, there's many other things. Like we can bring in nuts and seeds. Those are great for our lungs. Any white beans, so your kidney beans, those types of things support our digestive health. And then, of course, very, very important to bring in fermented foods
Yeah.
in these months because we want to allow for the body just to take some time and really digest the food properly. Everything slows down. So we're not running on this fast metabolism as we would in the summer months. So we need that extra gut support. So your sauerkrauts, kimchi, miso, tempeh, fiber-rich veggies like cabbages or cauliflowers or turnips, those types of things is then what you want to bring in. And then we also want to add in foods that bring natural relief for tension and dryness in the body.
Okay.
So there I would say moistening foods like honey
Okay.
or sesame seed oil, flaxseed oil, silky tofu. And of course, if you look at those ingredients, especially honey, we know that it's a natural antibiotic,
Yeah.
right? So you can actually make cough syrup for your baby from honey. So you just dilute it a little bit with water and you can give it with a teaspoon, but it's perfect for lung support. So those are the types we want to bring in. So instead of cooking with your normal sunflower seed oils,
Yeah.
or even olive oil is still fine, but you want to shift over to something like a sesame seed oil in the winter months. And then the last thing is we want to move away from things that are too dry. And this is where the processed foods come in.
Yeah.
Because as much as something like, I don't know, if McDonald's fries, not to diss McDonald's, but if you think about it, it is quite a dry thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's deep fried in oil, there's a lot of salt, and of course, it is going to dehydrate the body in an unhealthy way. So, any crisps or dry things, you want to move away from dry foods and you want to bring in healthy moistures. And that's why we naturally do things like soups and stews in the winter months, but to make sure that you then add your garlic, your onions, your ginger, your turmeric to that beautiful soup will just elevate the energy that the
Yeah.
body will feel.
Why should we avoid dairy?
So dairy, and this has been quite a big thing for most of my life because I was raised in a farm community and my mom and my whole family, we would consume liters of milk because the dairy was literally just
Yeah.
down the road. And I always struggled with sinus infection. Even my dad, like we never obviously had awareness of this. And it was only when I started my studies in 2017 when we did this whole study on the allergic reaction that happens in the human body when we consume specifically cow's milk or
Yeah.
any dairy. It's almost as if there's a built-in program that runs in the human body to say this is a foreign contaminant. The minute it comes into the body releases, all of these enzymes and things to say we have to send out more white blood cells to fight off this intruder that's coming into the body. And then it's crazy because if you think about it, most babies live on little yogurts, those tiny little yogurts, or their moms buys them like little milkshakes, or when they go to the restaurant, they order a milkshake. And then the main thing that most moms sit with in autumn and winter months is a baby that's got a sinus infection. And I mean, sometimes it's so severe that the baby has to, they have to have their sinuses washed out. So, or the baby ends up with bronchial infection in the hospital. But if you then look at what mommy's feeding baby, it's predominantly dairy. Babies love to eat, like she'll make a snack platter and what's on it? A mini yogurt and cheese, little blocks of cheese. And of course, the enzymes in the milk now stimulates the production of mucus in our sinuses and in the gut. So you are overstimulating the mucus production in the body, which means you are going to suffer in winter months. And often when you say to a mom, okay, your baby is now sick, we have to replace the little milkshake with a rooibos tea for these months. Obviously, in summer months, you can have some ice cream and things again, but we're not really designed for cow's milk. But if you want to have it in the summer months, and then a lot of moms are like, no, but my baby can't live without it. Like, she loves her yogurt or she loves her whatever. And I'm like, well, it's either a sinus infection or bronchial infection, or you replace it with a rooibos tea. Those are the options. But we live in a society where, and I think this, I'll say it with caution, because it's a major industry. The amount of money that is made by the dairy industry is insane. There's another false illusion or a false message that goes out to the world to say milk is the highest concentration of calcium. So your body and your bones needs. I mean, in the 80s, there was this huge drive about drink milk for more strong bones or something like that. Absolute rubbish. The highest concentration of calcium is leafy green vegetables. So it is a money-making thing. And because they've brought out so many different things. So yes, there are certain cheeses that are really good for your gut health.
Yeah.
But it is normally the stinky ones, the ones that children don't enjoy eating. So the whiter the cheese or the more smelly the cheese, the healthier it is for your gut.
Interesting.
If it's a beautifully preserved in a little packet, like a cheddar or a Gouda or something that looks perfect and it looks like rubber, stay away.
Sure.
You should not be eating that. It's not for human consumption.
Yeah.
So I would say it's a very difficult one, because to fight this whole industry of, it's a money-making thing. Dairy is one of the things that every single household probably has. So to shift consciousness that the human body was never designed for it, I think is going to take us a while.
Very interesting.
To replace it.
Yeah. I'm interested in finding out what other practices, support emotional resistance and mental clarity. Are there any other things that we can talk about, look into?
Yeah, I think wintertime, as much as we still need to take care of our bodies with physical exercise, it's very, very important to follow suit with nature. As nature slows down, it's super important for us to maybe do a longer silent meditation in the mornings and maybe a journaling exercise. And of course, breath work for every season, I would recommend it. So there's different types of breathing that you can do. And maybe instead of doing like an activating breath, like a breath of fire that you would do in summer, winter time, you would maybe go into more of a quiet meditation breath where you focus on the silence between the inhale and the exhale. So you will sit, breathe in, and just rest for a moment in that silence, and then exhale, rest for a moment in that silence, and almost becoming aware that everything around you is slowing down. So people are waking up later when it's winter mornings, or if it's weekend, there's a lie-in that happens. So everything is quiet. The neighborhood is quiet. So just do the same thing. Follow suit with nature.
Yeah.
Make time to be quiet. And yes, if you are going to go on a walk, maybe make it a quiet meditation walk, where instead of, if you and your wife go for a walk, instead of having a conversation to catch up on your day, rather just hold hands and listen to the sounds of nature. The wind rustling through the trees, the chirp of the birds, whatever sounds are around you, even if it's a vehicle driving past. And there's a beautiful practice that we can bring the awareness that everything in life returns back to the silence. And I mentioned this to you last time, where it's almost like all of life is held in this eternal silence. So when someone speaks, eventually at the end of the conversation, it ends and it becomes silent again. Between breaths, there's always silence. When we go to bed at night, the body shuts down. There's silence. We sleep for a period of time. Even if you listen to a noise, when a car drives past, first you hear the noise and then it disappears and it returns to silence. So if that can be your main meditation focus throughout autumn and winter, you instill this deeper sense of almost peace in the body. And you become aware that with life, we are always being held. we are always in the space of protection and safety. All we have to do is to trust that we are always held.
Yeah.
And that is a beautiful practice to bring in the winter months.
That's pretty cool. Do you want to say anything in closing as we close? Anything else?
Yeah, I think if people can also make time to just observe the temperature shifts, because something as small as putting your slippers on
Yeah.
as you leave your room to go to the kitchen can actually help your body to stay warm and your immune system to stay strong. So as you get out of your bath and your shower, I know the body feels warm, but make sure you put your jersey on or your gown or your whatever just to hold that core energy. Same in the morning, put your slippers on as you walk about. Try and almost preserve the heat that the body's holding,
Yeah.
because then the body can focus on other things. And it's often when people are sitting without a jersey or without shoes or socks that your nose
Yep.
starts running. And,
True.
you know, so it's the little things, but be mindful of the signals of the body.
It's the little things. Cindy, thank you. I really enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait for people to see it.
Thank you. Thank you for watching.
100%. Another episode of Learning How to Live. Until next time. Cheers.